Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week, and if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. Today's tutorial is an early Christmas gift from me to you in the form of a new cable stitch VK dress, which is always a fun make and also a surefire head turner. Speaking of, by now y'all already know the drill, but just in case you're new, the best modern crochet tutorials and patterns sure to make heads turn are here, with even more dropping twice weekly, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now it's time to get on the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 350 grams of yarn. That's 780 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 5mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us if you eat your pizza crusts. I do, and depending on the pizza, it may even be the best part. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 6 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, treble crochet, and double treble crochet. This tutorial is made for size small. You can adjust it for your size, and we explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this dress started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Then we're all going to grab our 5mm hook and start off by making a chain that reaches from mid-collarbone across our chest to mid-collarbone. Now it does need to be a minimum of 33, which is what I'm going to make. That's going to be just about 8 inches or 20 centimeters. But if you would like a larger size, you're just going to add 4 more chains to 33. So for an example, 37, 41, 45, so on and so forth. Now that we have our chain, we're all going to do our first row. So start by blocking off that chain and do a chain 2. Now that chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then from here, we're going to put 1 half double crochet into every chain. So starting with the yarn over, into that chain that we blocked off, or the 3rd chain from our hook, we're going to insert with a half double crochet, so pull through, yarn over, pull through 3. Let's do that again, yarn over, into that next chain, pull through, yarn over, pull through 3, and continue with 1 half double crochet into every chain. So we are back and our row 1 is complete. Now our following row is going to be a single crochet row. So what we're going to do is chain 1, flip our work, and put 1 single crochet into every stitch. So starting with the last stitch from our previous row, we're going to insert, pull through 2. Continue with 1 single crochet into every stitch. So we are back. Our single crochet row is complete. Now before we get started on the cable stitch detail, we're going to need to insert our stitch markers into some places. So first, making sure that our hook is on the right side, we are going to insert our stitch marker into our middle stitch. We should all have just 1 middle stitch for everyone, no matter what size we're making, since our base chain all should have ended on an odd number. And for those of you that have my numbers, which was a chain 33, my middle stitch is going to be my 17th stitch. So counting from the right side, I inserted my stitch marker into that 17th stitch. And for this portion, we're going to insert our stitch markers into the right of our middle stitch. So from our middle stitch, we're going to start by counting 4 stitches, that is not including the middle stitch, and we're going to insert our stitch marker into that 4th stitch, which is this one for me. Then from there, counting from the outer edge, so from where our hook is, we're going to insert our stitch marker into the 8th stitch. Then once we have that one into place, we're going to work from the middle stitch marker to the left. So just like how we did on this side, counting from our middle stitch marker, but now we are counting that middle stitch marker stitch, we're going to insert our stitch marker into the 4th stitch from that middle stitch. Then counting from the outer edge, so the left, we're going to insert our stitch marker into the 9th stitch. And we have just separated our twists, our cable stitch detail, and our middle cable. Once we have all of our stitch markers into place, we're now going to get started on our row 3, which is our first cable stitch row. So start with a chain 2 and flip. Now every cable stitch row will be worked into our previous odd number row. So since we're about to get started on our row 3, we're going to be inserting our hook into our row 1. So we're all going to start with our dividing stitch, which is always going to be a front post treble crochet. So we're going to yarn over twice. We're going to find the first half double crochet from our row 1, making sure we're not working into that chain 2 because that was our churning chain. We're going to insert our hook underneath the body of that first half double, through the other side, and pull through. From here, we're going to yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now that is our dividing stitch. Now we're going to do the twist portion. So what we're going to do is 1 front post treble crochet, so yarn over twice again. We're going to skip 1 stitch from our row 1, then 1 front post double treble crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. So again, we're going to skip that following half double, and underneath the body of that next, with 1 front post treble crochet, so yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook, and then another front post treble into that following, so yarn over twice, bring our hook down, underneath, through the other side, pull through, yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. Just like that, now we're going to do the twist portion, so we're going to yarn over twice again, and insert our hook into that 1 skipped stitch. So bring our hook down, underneath the body of that first skip stitch, through the other side, pull through, then again yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. And that is our first twist completed. We're going to be doing another twist right next to it, and it's going to be done the same way. So yarn over twice. We're going to skip 1 stitch from our previous odd number row. So yarn over twice, we're preparing for a front post treble crochet. So bring our hook down, skip that next stitch, into the next, with 1 front post treble. Yarn over twice with another front post treble. Now working back into that 1 skip stitch, another front post treble crochet, so yarn over twice. Bring our hook down into that skip stitch, through the other side, pull through, and from here continue to pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. So far we should have our dividing stitch, 2 twists. Now we're going to do our dividing stitch again, and it should be that following stitch, which is our stitch marker stitch. So yarn over twice, bring our hook down, underneath the body of that next stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, 2, 2, and now the first section for our row 3 is complete. And once when this is completed, we're going to do our Alpine stitch detail until we reach our following stitch marker stitch. So we're all going to start with 1 front post double crochet. So yarn over once, and working into our row 1, we're going to find that next available stitch. We're going to insert our hook underneath, through the other side, yarn over, and pull through. When we have these 3 loops on our hook, we are going to pull up nice and tall. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through 2, and pull through 2. Then we have to do a half double crochet. So we're going to skip 9 stitches from our previous row and do a half double crochet. We're skipping 9 because we just took up a total of 9 stitches here. So counting together, we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Into that following stitch is going to be 1 half double crochet. And for the Alpine stitch detail, it's just going to be a front post double, half double crochet until we reach our following stitch marker stitch. So let's do it again. Yarn over, preparing for a front post double. We are going to take a look at our row 1. We're going to skip that following stitch because that half double crochet that we just did counts as that stitch. So just underneath the next with another front post double crochet, making sure that we pull up nice and tall. Then I have 1 more stitch to do right before I reach my stitch marker. So we're going to skip 1 stitch from our previous row because this front post double crochet counts as that stitch, and into the next insert with 1 half double crochet. For those of you that have more stitches to do, continue to do a front post double, half double until we reach our following stitch marker stitch. And now we're at our middle stitch marker stitches, so now we're ready to do our middle cable. We're all going to start with a dividing stitch for the middle cable as well, so yarn over twice. We're going to bring our hook down underneath that following stitch. We do want to make sure that we're not working into the body of that first stitch because that half double counts as that stitch. So underneath that next with a front post treble crochet. And now that our dividing stitch is completed, we're going to skip the following 2 stitches, Then into the next two, a set of 2 front post double treble crochets. So yarn over 1, 2, 3 times, preparing for a front post double treble. We're going to skip 1, skip 2, and underneath the following 2, 1 front post double treble into each. So bring your hook down, underneath the body of that stitch, through the other side, with 1 front post double treble. Then into the following, another front post double treble. So yarn over 3 times, bring your hook underneath and through the other side, then continue to yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. Now that we have those 2 stitches completed, we're going to work back into those 2 skip stitches, putting 1 front post double treble crochet into each of those as well. So yarn over 1, 2, 3 times, back into that first skip stitch with our first front post double treble. Another front post double treble underneath that following. So yarn over 3 times, insert back into that skip stitch with 1 front post double treble. And now that this crossover is completed, a set of 2 front post treble into the following 2 stitches. So yarn over twice. Bring our hook down underneath that next stitch with 1 front post treble. Then underneath that following with another front post treble crochet. And once we have this completed, the cable stitch detail of our middle cable is completed, but we do need to frame it off with our dividing stitch. So yarn over twice, bring our hook down underneath that next stitch with a front post treble crochet, which is always our dividing stitch. Now from here, we're going to get started on our Alpine stitch detail. So our Alpine stitch detail will be done the same way as our previous run. So we're going to start with a front post double crochet. Yarn over, into that next available stitch, we're going to insert our hook underneath, yarn over, pull through. When we have these 3 loops on our hook, pull up nice and tall, pull through 2, pull through 2. Then we're going to do a half double crochet. We are going to skip 9 stitches from our previous row because we just took up a total of 9 stitches here. So counting that out together, here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Into that following stitch, insert with 1 half double crochet. Then another front post double, which we should already know how to do that. We're going to yarn over. Underneath the body, that next stitch, yarn over, pull through, pull up tall, pull through 2, pull through 2, then a half double, yarn over. Skip 1 stitch from our previous row because this front post double counts as that stitch, then half double crochet into the next. From here, continue with our front post double and half double, so our Alpine stitch detail, until our following stitch marker stitch is reached. So once we have reached our following stitch marker stitch, we're ready to get started on our last set of twists, and it will be done the same way as the first set of twists. So we do need to put our dividing stitch in, so yarn over twice. Underneath that following stitch from our row 1, we're going to bring our hook down, underneath with our dividing stitch, so pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. Once we have our dividing stitch, we're going to yarn over twice, skip 1 stitch from our row 1, then put 1 front post treble crochet into each of the following 2. So skip 1, underneath that next with 1 front post treble, 1 front post treble crochet underneath that following as well. Then we need to do our crossover, so 1 front post treble crochet into that 1 skipped stitch. So bring our hook back, underneath the body of that skipped stitch, pull through, and continue to pull through 2 till we have 1 loop left on our hook. That is our first twist. We do need to do a second, so yarn over twice, skip 1 stitch from our previous row, and 1 front post treble crochet into each of the following 2. So skip 1, underneath the next with 1 front post treble, underneath that following with another front post treble, then worked back into that skip stitch with another front post treble. And now that that crossover is completed, we are nearly done with our row. We do need to close off this twist portion with our dividing stitch. So that's going to be a front post treble crochet into that following stitch, which should be the second to last stitch from our row 1. And just to secure everything down, 1 half double crochet into the last stitch from our previous row. So we are back and our row 3 is complete. We should have the same amount of stitches as our previous row, and for this portion of our piece, every even number row is going to be a single crochet row. So from here, simply chain 1, flip our work, and 1 single crochet into every stitch. We are back and our row 4 is complete. Now from here, we're going to get started on our row 5. So chain 2 and flip. So getting started on our row 5, just like our previous row, every cable stitch row is going to be worked into our previous odd number row. So since we're working on our row 5, we're going to be inserting our hook into our row 3. Now our twists, so this first section will always be the same. So getting that started, we're going to start with our dividing stitch. We're going to yarn over twice. Bring our hook down underneath the dividing stitch from our row 3. We're going to pull through and continue to pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. Then we need to do our twists, so yarn over twice. We're going to skip 1 stitch from our previous odd number row, then into that following 1 front post treble crochet into that stitch, then into that following stitch another front post treble crochet, when we have those 2 front post trebles completed, another front post treble into that 1 skip stitch. So yarn over twice, bring our hook back underneath the body of that first stitch with our front post treble, and this is our first twist. We do need to do a second one that will be done the same way, so yarn over twice, skipping that following stitch and underneath the body of that next with our first front post treble, then another front post treble underneath the body of that following stitch. Then to do the twist for the second one, work back into that 1 skip stitch with another front post treble crochet. Once when that second twist is completed, close off this section with our dividing stitch, which is a front post treble crochet. So now that our twists are completed, we're going to do our Alpine stitch detail. Now when it comes to doing our Alpine stitch detail, our stitches need to be staggered from our previous row. So since the first stitch from our previous Alpine stitch detail was a front post double, we do need to do a half double crochet into the top of that stitch. So we're all going to start by skipping 8 stitches from our previous row and do a half double crochet into that next. We're skipping 8 because we just took up a total of 8 stitches here. So counting that out together, here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Half double crochet into that following stitch. So now that half double crochet is on top of that front post double crochet from our previous odd number row. Now we're going to do a front post double, so we're going to yarn over. And then that next stitch should be a half double crochet. So underneath the body of that half double crochet, we're going to bring our hook underneath, through the other side, pull through. Pull up tall, pull through 2, pull through 2. From here, we're going to continue to repeat our half double and front post double until we're ready to work into our middle cable, and I just have 2 more to do, so I'll do that with you. We are going to skip that following stitch from our previous row because that front post double counts as that stitch, so we're just going to half double into that following. And then to do another front post double together, yarn over, underneath the half double from our previous Alpine stitch detail, we're going to bring our hook underneath, through the other side, yarn over, pull through. Pull up tall, pull through 2, and pull through 2. Then continue with our Alpine stitches till we reach our middle cable. So now to get started on our middle cable, what we're going to do is frame it with our dividing stitch, which is a front post treble. So underneath the front post treble from our previous odd number row, we're going to bring our hook down, underneath the body, pull through, and continue to pull through 2 till we have 1 loop left on our hook. Then, for the cable stitch detail, we're going to start with another set of 2 front post trebles. So just into that following stitch, bring our hook down, underneath, pull through with 1 front post treble, then underneath that following stitch with another front post treble crochet. Then we are going to skip the following 2 stitches and into the following 2, 1 front post double treble into each of those. So now yarn over 3 times. You're going to skip 1, skip 2, underneath that following with 1 front post double treble, then another front post double treble underneath the body of that following. So bring our hook underneath, through the other side, and continue to pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. And now that we have those 2 stitches completed, we are going to work back into those 2 skip stitches but now in through that window that we just made for ourselves. So preparing for a front post double treble again, yarn over 3 times. We're going to hang on to our working yarn, bring our hook down towards us, finding those 2 skip stitches. This is my first and this is my second. I'm going to insert my hook underneath that first skip stitch first with a front post treble, so pull through and yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook again. And this is our first crossover. We have another one left to do, so yarn over 3 times again, hang on to your working yarn, and pull our work down. Finding that second skip stitch, this is mine, we're going to bring our hook down through the other side and pull through, then yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. Now this crossover is completed, we do need to close off our middle cable with our dividing stitch. So yarn over twice, underneath the body of that following dividing stitch from our previous row 3, insert with our front post treble. And now that the middle cable is completed, we're going to do our Alpine stitch detail. So we're going to start with a half double crochet because for this one we started with a half double crochet, and also because the first stitch from our previous Alpine stitch detail was a front post double. Remember, our stitches need to be staggered. So we're going to skip 9 stitches from our previous row and then half double crochet. We're skipping 9 because we had a total of 9 stitches here. So counting, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Into that following with 1 half double crochet. That's the first stitch for this Alpine stitch section. Then a front post double. So yarn over once, finding the half double crochet from our previous Alpine stitch detail. Insert, pull through, pull up tall, pull through 2, pull through 2. Then we're going to Alpine stitch until we're ready to close off the section with our twists. So yarn over, skip 1 stitch from our previous row because this front post double counts as that stitch, into the next with a half double. Then I just have 1 more stitch left to do, which is a front post double. Then we can do our twist. So we're ready to close off our row with our twist. The twist will be done the same way as our previous row, so let's do that together quickly. We're going to yarn over twice. Finding that dividing stitch from our previous odd number row, we're going to insert with our front post treble. Then right after that, we have our first twist to do, so yarn over twice. Skip that following stitch and underneath the body of that next with 1 front post treble. Then underneath the following with another front post treble. Then working back into that 1 skip stitch so that we can get our crossover, we're going to do 1 front post treble crochet. And we're going to do this again, so yarn over twice. Skip 1 stitch from our previous odd number row and into the next with 1 front post treble. Then into the next with another front post treble. Then once we have this one completed, another front post treble into that 1 skip stitch so that we can get our twist detail. And when this one is completed, we're going to close off our twist with our dividing stitch. So into the dividing stitch from our previous odd number row with 1 front post treble, then complete the entire row off with just 1 half double crochet into that last stitch to secure everything down. Once we have that completed, our row 5 is done. Now, like I said, every even number row is going to be a single crochet row. So from here, chain 1, flip our work, 1 single crochet into every stitch. So we are done and our row 6 is complete. So all we're going to do from here is continue to repeat rows 3 through 6. Now each of the rows and each of the sections will be linked in the description if y'all need a refresher for any of them, but all we're going to do is continue to repeat rows 3 through 6 until we have a portion that reaches all the way up to the corner of our underarm. Then I'll meet everyone back right after an even number row, right when we're about to get started on a repeat of row 3. Then we can do our decreases together. So we're going to want to place this first row at the length that we'd like for this dress to be, so mid-thigh, knee length, that's completely up to you. Then just continue to work your way all the way up. Now just as some really quick tips, like I said in one of our previous clips, each of our cable stitch rows will be worked into our previous cable stitch row. So since this following row would be row 7, we would be inserting our hook into our row 5, and each of our Alpine stitch details will be staggered from our previous Alpine stitch detail. Go ahead and get this portion completed and I'll meet you back. Alright, so we are back. The height of our cable stitch detail is complete. I have a total of 70 rows. This height is just about 18.5 inches or 47 centimeters. Now we're going to get started on the decrease portion. So we're all going to start with a chain 2 and flip. And we're all going to start with a decrease of 2 front post treble crochets. So yarn over twice. We are going to insert our hook underneath the first 2 stitches from our previous odd number row. So bring your hook down underneath that first and underneath that second. Then we're going to do our front post treble per usual. So pull through and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. Now from here, since we have these 2 twists left, we are going to skip 1 stitch and put 1 front post treble crochet into the next. So yarn over twice, skip into the next with 1 front post treble. Then working back into that skip stitch with another front post treble. Now from here, we're going to continue on with the rest of our row 3, leaving the last 3 stitches. So the twist, alpine, middle cable is all going to be the same, and I'll meet you back when we have just that last twist and dividing stitch left to do. So we've made our way down and we have just completed our second to last twist. Now we're going to do the last twist and it's going to end with a decrease as well. So what we're all going to do is yarn over twice, preparing for a front post treble. We're going to skip that following stitch and into the next, we're going to insert with 1 front post treble. So this starts off per usual. Now just like how we did the other side, we are going to have these last 2 post stitches worked into a decrease. So just working into that 1 skip stitch, we're going to put 1 front post treble. Then into the last 2 post stitches, a decrease of 2 front post trebles, so just yarn over twice per usual, and insert your hook underneath those 2 post stitches, and then do our front post treble per usual. That is our decrease, and we still need to close off our row with 1 half double crochet into the last stitch from our previous row just to secure everything down. And now our first decrease row is complete. We do want to make sure that we're inserting a stitch marker into both edges of this row just so we know where the decrease portion starts. Now the following row is going to be a single crochet row, so chain 1, flip our work, 1 single crochet into every stitch, then I'll meet you back. We have just completed our first single crochet row. Now we're going to get started on our second decrease row together, so we're all going to chain 2 and flip. So getting started on our second decrease row, we're going to start our row off like our previous row, so starting with a decrease of 2 front post trebles. So yarn over, underneath that first post stitch and second post stitch from our previous cable stitch row, we're going to insert with our decrease of 2 front post trebles. Now for this twist, we should have just 1 stitch left. We're just going to insert into there with 1 front post treble. Then from here, continue on to the rest of our row 5 until we have our last twist left to do, then I'll meet you back. So we've made our way down, leaving that last twist and dividing stitch. Now the decrease is pretty much always going to mirror the decrease that we began the row with. So if you guys remember, we did our decrease, then just 1 singular front post treble. So what we're going to do is start with 1 front post treble, then our decrease. So yarn over, just into that following stitch with 1 front post treble. Then underneath the last 2 post stitches, we have a decrease of 2 front post trebles. And now that we have that decrease, we're always going to close off our row with a half double crochet into the last stitch from our previous row. Then we're going to do our following row, which is a single crochet row. So chain 1, flip our work, put 1 single crochet into every stitch, then I'll meet you back at the end of that row. Our fourth decrease row is complete. Now we're going to chain 2 and flip. So what we're going to do is basically just continue to decrease along both edges until this portion can reach from the corner of our underarm, so placing our stitch marker at the corner of our underarm until this reaches the base of our neck. Now I'm just going to do the following row with you guys and let you do the rest on your own. So what we're going to do is start this row off with our decrease. So yarning over twice, we're going to insert our hook underneath the first 2 post stitches from our previous cable stitch row. So pull through 2, 2, 2. Then from here, continue on with our twist and the rest of our row 3 until we have our last twist left to do. So we've made our way down, leaving our last twist left. So now what we're going to do is just close it off with a decrease of 2 front post trebles. So underneath both of those post stitches with a front post treble, then make sure we always close off the row with 1 half double crochet into that last stitch from our previous row. And our even number rows are still going to be a single crochet row. So chain 1, flip our work, and single crochet all the way down. So our first 6 decrease rows are complete. All we're going to do from here is continue to do a decrease of 2 front post treble crochets into the ends of our cable stitch rows until we have a portion that reaches from the corner of our underarm all the way up until we reach the base of our neck. Then I'll meet everyone back right after a cable stitch row. We are back. The decrease portion of my cable stitch detail is complete. Now I have a total of 87 rows and my total height is now 23 inches or 58 centimeters. Now we're going to get started on our prep row. So right after that last decrease row, we're all going to do a chain up of 1 and cut. Then we're going to start by inserting our hook into the bottom corner stitch of our cable stitch detail. So making sure that our cable stitch detail is up towards us and the blunt end is on the right side of us because we all want to show the front of our single crochet row. We're going to insert our hook into the bottom corner stitch and we're going to start with a single crochet row alternating between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row, starting with 2. We're going to pull our working yarn through and do a chain up of 1 to secure. Now finding our first side row, which is our side half double crochet stitch right here, I'm going to find that top loop and insert with 2 single crochets. There's 1 into that same top loop with a second. Into our following side row, it should be a side single crochet row. Find that top loop, insert with just 1 single. Again, into our following side row, it should be a side half, it should be a little bit taller, insert with 2, there's 1, there's 2. Then into our following side row, which is a side single, find that top loop and insert with 1. We're going to work our way all the way up until we're worked into the side row that is right before our stitch marker side row. So we've just made our way all the way up with our single crochet row until we're worked into the side row that is right before our decrease side row, which is our stitch marker side row. I did do a chain up of 1 and cut. Now we're going to repeat what we did here on the other side. So we're going to start by inserting our hook into the side row that's right beneath our first decrease row. So the side row that's underneath that side row, it should be a side single crochet row. Insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through and do a chain 1. That chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, that's just to secure. And we're going to start with a single crochet row and we are going to be alternating still between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row, but now starting with just 1 single crochet. So finding that same side row should be the side row that our chain 1 is in. I'm going to find that top loop and insert with just 1 single crochet into our following side row, which is our side half, insert with 2. Continue this till we make our way all the way down. We should have the same amount of stitches on both sides. And at the end of this row, do not do a chain up of 1 and cut. We are back and our second single crochet row is complete. Now from here, we're going to get started on our first side panel. So what we're going to want to do is place this up to ourselves, making sure that our last cable stitch row is still at the base of our neck. Then what we're going to do from here is insert our stitch marker into the stitch that's nearest to our underbust, so roughly where an underwire would sit. Now I've inserted my stitch marker into the 24th stitch from the top, that's just about 5.5 inches or 14 centimeters. And the top is just counting that single crochet row, not that entire piece. And now what we're going to do is back loop slip stitch rows. So for the second prep row, we all should have ended along the bottom. What we can do from here is just chain 1 and flip. And now we're going to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch until we have 2 left right before our stitch marker. So what we're going to do is find that first stitch's back loop, or the loop that's furthest away from us. We're going to insert, yarn over, and gently pull through everything on our hook. Doing this again, we're going to insert our hook into that following stitch's back loop, or the loop that's furthest away from us. Then yarn over and pull through everything. And from here, continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, leaving 2 stitches right before our following stitch marker stitch. And we do want to make sure that we're not pulling too tightly after every slip stitch. Otherwise, the following row could be a little too tight to work into. So we've made our way all the way up, leaving 2 stitches right before our stitch marker. Now we're all going to do a decrease of 2 back loop slips. So inserting our hook into that first stitch's back loop, we're going to insert, yarn over, pull through. Into that second stitch's back loop, we're going to insert. When we have these 3 loops on our hook, we're going to yarn over and gently pull through all 3 of those loops. Now the following row is going to start with a decrease as well, so we're going to chain 1 and flip. Then to do our decrease again, we're going to insert our hook into that next stitch's back loop, pull through, next stitch's back loop. When we have these 3 loops, yarn over, pull through all 3, and continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into the rest of our stitches. So our first 2 decrease rows are complete. All we're going to do is continue to repeat these 2 decrease rows until this height along the top of our decrease that we have right here is the depth that we'd like for the back to be. Now, if you'd like to show a lot of back, do more rows, or if you'd like to have your back a little bit more covered, do fewer rows. But I will meet everyone back right after we have this height completed. Alright, so we are back. We have just completed one of our side panels. Now I have a total of 21 rows. That is not including that first single crochet prep row. This width is just about 2.5 inches or 6 centimeters unstretched, or my total width that I have is just about 10 inches or 25 centimeters also unstretched. Now what we're going to do from here is repeat everything that we did here on the other side. So we're going to insert our stitch marker into the same amount of stitches that we inserted into for the other side. So for those of you that have my numbers, I inserted my stitch marker into the 24th stitch from the top. So I did the same thing on this side. Then I'm going to insert my hook into the next available stitch that we have that's nearest to our stitch marker, working down towards the bottom, and we want to make sure that it's within the back loop. So once we have our hook into that next stitch's back loop, working down towards the bottom, we're going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and do a chain 1 just to secure, and we're going to start with a decrease. So into that same stitch's back loop, we're going to insert, pull through, following stitch's back loop, then yarn over, pull through all 3. Then from here, we're going to continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Then what we're going to do is basically just repeat our decrease rows. So all we're going to do is continue to do a decrease of 2 back loop slip stitches along the top, just like how we did here. Then once we have the same amount of rows, I will meet you guys back, but do not do a chain up, one and cut, because we can work straight into the back together from there. We are back. We have just completed the second side panel. Now my total width is just about 12 inches or 30 centimeters unstretched. Now from here, since we did not do a chain up, one and cut right after that last row, we're just going to continue on with back loop slip stitch rows with no more increases or decreases for the width that we need for the back to be. So I went ahead and actually already gotten that completed. What the back panel is going to be is just back loop slip stitch rows. Like I said, no increases, no decreases. So at the end of the row, we're just going to chain 1, flip our work, 1 back loop slip into every stitch, chain 1, flip our work, 1 back loop slip into every stitch again. Now I did insert my stitch marker into my first back panel row. That's just for my stitch count. This is my first back panel row, and from my first back panel row all the way until where I've ended, I have a total of 73 back panel rows. Now this total width of just my back panel is just about 9 inches or 23 centimeters unstretched, or my total width is now 21.5 inches or 55 centimeters also unstretched. Now the back panel is just going to be the portion that can stretch around your hips. So still placing that first cable stitch row at the base of our neck. As we're building our back panel, we're going to stretch this piece around us as if we're wearing it around our back over to the last row that we have on this side's side panel. Once we have that width completed, I will meet you guys back so we can seam everything up together. So now that we have the total of our back portion completed, we're now going to seam it all up, and we're going to do an outside loop slip stitch seam just to make it look like another back loop slip stitch row. So what we're going to do is fold our work, making sure that everything is flipped right side out, because this outside loop slip stitch seam is going to look like another back loop slip stitch row. Then we're going to insert our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. We're going to pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure. Then finding that first stitch into the front panel, we're going to insert only in through that front loop. Then finding that first stitch into the back panel, insert only in through that back loop. Then yarn over and pull through everything on our hook. Again, next stitch into the front panel, insert only into that front loop. Next stitch into the back, insert only into that back. Then yarn over and pull through everything on our hook, and we're just going to continue doing this till we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, then I'll meet you back. So now that the skirt portion is all seamed up, we're ready to get started on the cowl. First things first, we're going to want to insert our stitch marker into the middle stitch that we have into our last cable stitch row. So for those of you that have my numbers, since I ended with a total of 15 stitches, I inserted my stitch marker into the 8th stitch. That is my middle stitch. We should all have just 1 for every size. Now what we're going to do from here is making sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. We're going to insert our hook into the left outer corner of our cable stitch detail, and from here we're all going to make an even numbered chain that can wrap around our head, including this single crochet portion. So I went ahead and already measured mine out. Now I needed roughly 12.5 inches or 32 centimeters. That is not including this cable stitch detail. So I'm going to start by making a chain 60. Now that we have our chain, we're going to single crochet into the top right corner stitch. That's going to count as our connection and as a stitch. But right before we do that, we do want to make sure that we're inserting a stitch marker into the first and into the last chain that we made. Then making sure that our chain isn't twisted, we're going to insert our hook into the top corner stitch like I said. Then from here, we're going to single crochet into that stitch, that's going to count as our connection and as a stitch because we're going to work our way across with 1 single crochet into every stitch as well. Continue this until we reach our first chain, and we do want to make sure that we're inserting a stitch marker into that middle stitch still. We've made our way across our cable stitch detail with 1 single crochet into every stitch. Now we're going to do another single crochet row just to clean everything up. So we did slip stitch into that first chain. Now that slip stitch still doesn't count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then we're going to chain 1, and starting with into that first chain again, we're going to put 1 single crochet into every chain, making our way all the way around, including into the top of our cable stitch detail. And we do want to make sure that we're inserting our stitch markers into the tops of the same stitches. Then I'll meet you back once we made our way all the way around. Now, just as a really quick tip, this following single crochet row is going to be as wide as this portion can stretch. So once one is completed, try your piece on. If it's a little too tight, we do some stitches with a looser grip, or if it's too loose, we do some stitches with a tighter grip. So we are back. We have just made our way all the way around with our single crochet row. We have slip stitched into that chain space. Now from here, we're going to get started on the length of our cowl. So from where we're at, we're all going to want to make a chain the length that we'd like for the cowl to be, keeping in mind that it is going to be folded in half as well. So I'm going to start by making a chain of 25. That's just about 7 inches or 18 centimeters. Now that we have our chain, we're all going to block off that last chain and do a chain 2. Now that chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. From here, we're going to yarn over, preparing for a half double. Now starting into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook, we're going to insert with a half double. Then from here, continue with 1 half double crochet into every chain. We made our way down with our half double crochet row. Now we're going to connect it into the base. Now for this portion, we're going to connect it into the back first, so going back towards the chain. So into that next available stitch, which should be our stitch marker stitch, all we're going to do is slip stitch into there. Now that slip stitch doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect. I'm going to take out my stitch marker because I don't need it anymore. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base. Still doesn't count as a stitch, and flip our work. From here, 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch. So yarn over, into that first stitch's back loop, insert, yarn over, pull through 3, and from here continue with 1 back loop half into every stitch. Then at the end of the row, chain 2, flip our work, put 1 back loop half into every stitch again. Then I'll meet you back at the end of our row 3. We are back and our row 3 is completed. Now we're going to connect it into the base the same way that we just did. So just into that next available stitch, insert with a slip stitch, doesn't count as a stitch. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that next available stitch into the base, flip our work, and repeat. From here, we're going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we're worked into our following stitch marker stitch. Then I'll meet you back. So we are back. We've made our way all the way around with our back loop half double crochet rows. We are worked into our following stitch marker stitch. Now from where we're at until we reach our middle stitch marker stitch, we're going to be doing increases along the bottom edge of our half double crochet row. So since we all should have ended along the outside, we're all going to chain 2 and flip. Now from here, we're going to start this row off with an increase of 2 back loop half doubles all into that first back loop. And don't mind this is in the yarn for some reason. From here, we're going to continue with 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch. Then connecting it into the base will be done exactly the same way as all of our other rows. So go ahead and connect it, work your way up to the following row, then work your way back out with 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, and I'll meet you back when we have just 1 stitch left so we can increase together again. Alright, so we have just completed our first increase row, connected it into the base, and also made our way back down with our second increase row, leaving that last stitch. Now all we're going to do is just close off the row with an increase of 2 back loop half doubles. Now all we're going to do from here is continue to repeat these 2 previous rows until we're worked into the stitch that's right before our middle stitch marker stitch. Then I'll meet you back to do our middle stitch, then the decrease on the other side. We are back. The increase portion of our cowl is completed. We're worked into the stitch that's right before our middle stitch. Now we're going to work our way up to the following row and then do 1 back loop half double crochet row with no increases, no decreases. Then I'll meet everyone back at the end of the row. We have just completed our middle row. Now we're going to do more half double crochet rows until we don't have any more stitches left to work into, but now it decreases along the edge. So since we should all be along the outer edge now, we're all going to chain 2 and flip. Now doing our decrease of 2 back loop halves, start with the yarn over, into that first stitch's back loop, pull through, next stitch's back loop, pull through, yarn over, pull through 4, From here, continue with one back loop half into every stitch. Connect it into the base the same way that we've been doing this entire time, then make our way back up with one back loop half into every stitch, leaving the last 2 stitches so that we can decrease together once more. We are back. We have just completed our first decrease row, then we made our way down with our second, leaving the last 2 stitches. Now we're going to close off the row with a decrease again. So yarn over into that second to last back loop, pull through into that last back loop, pull through, yarn over, pull through 4. And from here, continue to repeat these 2 previous rows till we don't have any more stitches left to work into. Then I'll meet you back so we can seam it all together. So we are back. We have just completed the decrease side of our cowl. Now we're going to seam it all together. Now we're going to start by flipping our work over so that we're looking at the bottom portion of our cowl. We're going to start by inserting our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. So insert into the front, insert into the back, and simply single crochet everything together. Again, next stitch into the front, next stitch into the back, single till we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, then I'll meet you back. So now that our cowl is all seamed up, what we're going to do is now the back band. So that back band is actually going to run along the top of our skirt, up our sides, and underneath the bottom of our cowl as well. So we're going to start by making sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. And I'm just going to talk you guys through the single crochet row because it's going to be pretty simple. Worked into any stitch, simply put 1 single crochet into every stitch. Worked into the side of our cable stitch detail, we're going to be putting 2 single crochet into every side cable stitch row, 1 single crochet into every side single crochet row, kind of like how we did when we did our single crochet row along the edge. Then when we reach the skirt portion, simply put 1 single crochet into every side slip stitch row, making our way all the way back up and around. Once we have made our way all the way around, I will meet y'all back. So we are back. We have just completed single crocheting along the entirety of our piece. Now from here, we're going to get started on the length of our band. So what we're going to do right after we've slip stitched into that chain space is make a chain the length that we'd like for the band to be. I'd like for mine to be just about 1.5 inches or 2 centimeters. So I'm going to start by making a chain 8. Now that we have our chain, we're all going to block off that last chain and do a chain 1. That chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then into that chain that we blocked off, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. And from here, continue with 1 slip stitch into every chain. And we want to make sure that we're still not tugging too tightly. We've just completed our row 1. Now we're going to connect it into the base. Now connecting it in the base is actually going to be done exactly the same way as the cowl. So we're just going to find that next available stitch, insert with a slip stitch. That slip stitch doesn't actually count as a stitch. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base. Still does not count as a stitch. Flip our work, and now simply put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and that's it. From here, we're just going to do our back loop slip stitch rows, no increases, no decreases, connecting it into the base the same way that we just did, making our way all the way around. Once we have, I'll meet you back so we can seam it all together. Alright, so we are back. We've made our way all the way around with our back loop slip stitch rows. Now we're going to seam it together. Now I went ahead and already seamed mine up, but this seam is actually going to be done exactly the same way as the seam that we did when we connected the back panel to the side. So another outside loop slip stitch seam. So just to talk you guys through it, making sure that our work is flipped right side out, we're going to do our same outside loop slip stitch seam that we did for the sides. Then once we have that completed, do a chain up of 1 and cut. Now that the back band is completed, we're now going to do the bottom band. So just making sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. We're going to insert our hook into any one of the side rows that we have along the bottom of our piece and simply put 1 single crochet into every side slip stitch row, 1 single crochet into every stitch, making our way all the way around. Then I'll meet you back. So we are back and our single crochet row is complete. Now from here, we're going to make a chain the length that we'd like for the bottom band to be. I'd like for mine to be just about 2 inches or 5 centimeters. So I'm going to start by making a chain 10, then do our same exact back loop slip stitch rows that we did for the back band. So just 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, connecting it into the base the same way that we just did. We're not going to have any increases or decreases, so once we make our way all the way around, I'll meet you back so we can seam it together. So we've made our way all the way around with our bottom band, our back loop slip stitch rows. Now that we don't have any more stitches left to work into, we're going to seam it up. This seam is going to be done exactly the same way as our outside loop slip stitch seam that we did for the back band and for the side. So do that same outside loop slip stitch seam. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, do a chain up of 1 and cut. And now that everything is all seamed up, we are all done. The last thing we have to do is just weave in all of our ends. And there you have it, y'all. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye.